MPs today grilled Steinhoff's former Chief Financial Officer, Ben Lachranja. We'll bring you more in a short while. Well, let's take you to Parliament straight away, and that's where Lester Kiewit is standing by. Lester, now, in the bits that I saw in the morning, Steinhoff chairperson Heather Son didn't seem to be covering herself in glory. MPs accusing her of feeding them with recycled information and a lot of waffle.
That's right. The 4 portfolio committees who were grilling Steinhoff, as well as other people within the regulatory framework and as well as the Hawks, told Heather Son that she is essentially there on a PR exercise. They don't want to know the background of the Steinhoff saga. They want to know what is happening now, who has been held responsible, how far are investigations, and what are they doing to ensure that the 1.1 million government employees' pensions invested through the PIC in Steinhoff are essentially safe and are not vulnerable to the collapse of the company. Heather Son giving a brief report back saying that they've made deals with their creditors, that they've now been in negotiations with banks, that they'll have 3 years to stabilize the company and get it back on track. Now, this paled into comparison to some of the detail that Ben Lachranja had given Parliament, saying that firstly that he had not done anything wrong, first saying he had not done anything deliberately wrong. He was then asked by MP as well, if you didn't do anything deliberately wrong, then you may have done something wrong. He then backtracked, saying that he believes that he has done nothing wrong, only finding out about the alleged fraud at Steinhoff at a very late stage, and then later taking the moral decision to step out of the company as the chief financial officer, saying that he had done that moral decision to protect the company because he would have been seen as someone who was at the helm when the company nearly floundered, and said that he was then stepping back to protect the company, its assets, as well as its investments.
But Lester, how did a CFO rather, which Lachranja was, justify that excuse that, and I quote, there was limited sharing of information from Jooste to myself?
That's right. That was one of the questions by particularly the ANC's Thandi Tobias, claiming that Lachranja was being disingenuous and may not be telling the whole truth. Essentially, that he was the chief bean counter of this major company. He should have known what had been going on in the company's books. He said that he only found out about alleged fraud as late as December 2017, then resigning a month later. He was also quizzed on what is his relationship with the former CEO, Marcus Jooste. He says that there is no personal, friendly relationship between the two of them. They have never socialized. He wouldn't consider them friends, and that they had only had relations in a corporate work environment. I think MPs were trying to draw a line between the two. Some MPs even alleging that Ben Lachranja would be made the fall guy, as Thandi Tobias said, that he'd be taking on the blame. But some really directed questions from MPs across all political parties at Lachranja, at Steinhoff, saying, do they know what they were doing with 1.1 million pensions of government employees, wanting to know whether, as soon as they heard of any alleged wrongdoing, and that would pensions be affected, and how quickly did they notify the PIC? It seems that there's still going to be lots of discussions with Steinhoff, Parliament, as well as investigators, before we find any clarity and finality on the saga.
Very, very quick one, Lester, before I let you go. We have run out of time. Did the board eventually answer the question as to why nobody else has been referred to law enforcement authorities other than Marcus Jooste?
Well, that was a question that was asked particularly by the Portfolio Committee's chairperson, Yunus Karim, saying that he would want a legal reason, a legal argument why Steinhoff could not be mentioning names and mentioning particular people involved in any particular investigation. They were left quite disappointed, saying that they did not receive much information from the Steinhoff board. But there were plenty of lawyers there, plenty of legal advice. We do understand there are internal procedures happening. There's still reports outstanding from auditors. And of course, there's this criminal investigation by the Hawks into the Steinhoff saga. We're waiting for next week, where Marcus Jooste, the now disgraced former CEO of Steinhoff, is expected to appear before Parliament's portfolio committees. Though he won't be asked directly on the Steinhoff matter, he had made an agreement with Parliament that he would be talking generally of government's own financial regulatory system, which could have led to Steinhoff's collapse.
Lester Kiewit, let's leave it there for now. He attended that briefing. MPs grilling the Steinhoff board, as well as the company's former chief financial officer, Ben Lachranje, and none of them taking responsibility whatsoever for what has happened at Steinhoff.